couple of things that we need to consider when we are making our armored core. Little disclaimers right here is that yes, this is not a Souls title, but it does has some of the Souls formula that Fromsoftware has learned to master with all of the titles that they have. This is not a Souls title, this is an armored core game, but they have learned from the mechanics that they have in previous entries on the different iterations of the titles that they have released. That said, there are many mechanics in here that you will find that they share resemblances to some things that they have worked on previously. Now, we're not going to dwell too much into all of the things that we have for our numbers right here. I'm not going to explain every single little thing of those numbers. We're going to keep things basic for you to be able to build a armor core that is going to be efficient on combat and that is going to suit your playstyle's needs. Before that though, we need to decide what kind of player are you, what kind of archetype are you going to be. And this kind of archetype it's also linked to what I previously mentioned of being able to be a specific kind of player using the previous mechanics that we have in different games. So in Souls-likes, mainly Souls-likes and Dark Souls, Demon Souls and Elden Ring, not so much in Bloodborne and Sekiro, you have mainly three different archetypes of players. The Unga Bungas, which are the heavy boys, heavy tanky armor guys. Then we have the medium-sized armor guys that they like to have a balance between speed and weight and defense. And then we have the nimble characters, fast attacking guys that are going to have lots of attacks, lots of dodging, but not so much of a defense. The same archetypes are going to be right here. They are going to have some changes, but just to have in mind that they are here and you need to make a concession, you need to decide what type of player are you. Do you want to be nimble, have less defense but be more fast attacking? Do you want to be like an in-between, or do you want to be that tanky beefy boy that is going to have more ungas for your bungas? That said, when you start building your mecha, that is what you need to have in mind. Some of these spots are going to have the weight and energy load. And that is the main thing that we are going to be tackling on. The weight, current load, energy load, and whatnot. That is what we need to understand first. Here is the specs of the pots that you are going to be checking while you are on the store and the body shop body pods. And then here is the armor score specs. This is a simplified version, just to have in mind that you do have this little version that has more stats for you if you want min-max to the highest point capacity. For this video, we're going to stick with the basic aspects and specs. So let's talk about the legs. You will see a little message that I have right there, and that is because on the current load that we have, we are going to be overburdened. If you're overburdened, that means that you cannot carry your armor core to the battlefield to fight. So you need to have a balance. The legs are going to support the part of your armor core, something that is going to be very important, which is going to be the load limit. Basically, the rest of your armor core is going to be sustained by the legs that you have. And we have different kind of legs, and you can see the names that they have up there beside the name. We have the bipedal legs. We have also the reverse joint legs, they are bipedal as well. Then we have the tetrapod legs, and then we have the tank legs. And those are traits that are going to be independent of the load limits and the kind of web armor core that you are going to build, whether if it's going to be a heavy or not. Now, before we tackle on everything else, let's talk about what are the bipedal legs going to do, the reverse joints, what are they going to do, and then the tetrapods and the tanks, because before you actually start making a build, you need to decide what kind of movements are you going to have on the battlefield. The bipedal They are basically the jack of all trades. You can basically do whatever you want with these guys, and this is just a safe bet for a beginner because they are going to be able to do everything they want to, although there's going to be a little bit of a recoil when you are shooting on the air while using these things. On the other hand, these guys, they are going to allow you to jump faster and to remain moving airborne that much faster, kind of like a Ninja Weevil little robot. This is what these guys are going to do. And then if you want to be like a helicopter or a hovering flying machine, something, the tetrapods, they are going to do this, but they are going to require to manage a little bit more your energy because you're not going to recover it while you are hovering in the air. So that is something that you need to have in mind. And then finally we have the tanks. The tanks, they are not going to be that efficient on the air, but they're also not going to suffer any kind of recoil while using heavier weapons like bazookas and missiles. So that is a concession and a combo that you need to have in mind before actually starting building the mecha and the kind of weapons that you are going to be using for that mecha or armor core. Interestingly enough, the higher the value that you have right here, the less weight it's going to cost. So more means less in here, but less means more here. The current load, that is the actual load that you are going to need to be able to build your armor core. One thing to have in mind as well is going to be the actual looks of the mecha. How does it look? This one, for example, seems to be a light little thing. And it is. Usually you are going to want to have light parts with this, and this is going to fit the playstyle that I was telling you about. Do you want to be nimble? Do you want to be medium? Or do you want to be tanky? This, on the other hand, it seems to be very heavy, and it's also going to give you more load because, like I said, the legs are going to be the ones that are going to be sustaining the skeleton. This is the weights that you have right now at the moment, but this, on the other hand, is the maximum capacity for load that you are able to have with this specific legs. If we change these legs right here, you will see that this value diminishes because this is going to require for you to equip lighter parts on your body parts of your mecha. So that is something that you want to have in mind. You want to build a tank, you need lots of load. You want to build like something like in between the middle. This seems to be like something in between the middle, and it's going to have less equipped load. This is going to be a lighter thing. Now all of this is going to boost your speed, and the speed is generally just basically going to be that. The more speed that you have, the faster you are going to have, but the less armor that you're also going to have. So you're going to be faster, but you're going to be squishier. Whereas if you have heavier gears, as you can see, you are going to get more armor points. Those armor points, they are going to contribute of you being able to be more beefy, but then again, they are going to make you slower. So in reality, basically, the legs, they are going to be the ones that are going to be sustaining the rest of the skeleton of your body. Now all of your pods, every single one, they are going to be contributing to your armor points. And the armor points, they are basically your hit points. If they get depleted, you are going to die. You need to be healing about that. And when we talk about the arms, they are going to have their armor points, but they also have the arms load limits. Meaning, these guys are going to determine what kind of weapons are you going to be able to have, because you do have to make concessions. Do you want to equip heavier weapons, like for example rocket launchers? You are going to need beefy arms, but if you have like squishy arms, as you can see, these guys, they are not going to have that much of arm load limit. Meaning this go in combo with what I was telling you about being a light-weighted mecha, a light-weighted armor core, but you are going to have to make that concession. You are going to be using less weight weapons, and that is something that you need to have in mind as well. It also has the firearm specialization, and The firearm specialization basically means the likelihood of you being able to hit your target. That is going to be intertwined as well with the FCS, we're going to be speaking about a little bit later. But essentially, the higher your firearm specialization, the more accurate you are going to be. So for example, this in combo on a lightweighted character, if you have lightweight weapons, you are going to have that much more accuracy for you to be able to hit your targets. And on the other hand, if you equip something heavier, this is going to diminish your firearm specialization. This one even more, for example, but these guys, they are going to allow you to carry heavier weapons. Just have in mind that the heavier weapons are not going to be as accurate and they are going to have quite a lot of recoil. And the core is going to give you attitude stability. This is something that we didn't mention on the legs section, but I was saving this precisely for this. On the previous Souls games, we have something called poise. And also in Sekiro, we have the posture. When the enemy breaks that posture for you, meaning in Armor Core 6, if the enemy breaks your attitude stability, you are going to be on a broken stance, but you're also going to be able to break the stance, the attitude stability of the enemy, while the enemy is under that breaking point. You are going to deal that much more damage to them, and this is basically going to contribute. The heavier that the armor is going to be, the more tanky and poised attitude stability that your armor core is going to have. Then again, a lighter one is not going to have that much armor points, it's not going to have that much attitude stability, but it's going to have more speed, and it's also going to be less weighty. Now the generator output adjustments, that is going to contribute on your generator being more efficient with your generator and the resource that we're going to have with our generator, and we'll speak about our generator later. And then finally we have the headpiece. The headpiece again is going to give you armor points, attitude stability, but it's also going to give you system recovery. And the system recovery is the resistance that you have against vulnerability effects, for example fire or electricity, status effects that the enemy is going to cause onto you. So that is something that you need to have in mind. That said, the game also has logos and names that you are going to be able to use to guide you a little bit more. Do you not want to worry about that much, those things, and you just want to build a mecha that is going to be efficient? Basically, this is the way of the game being able to provide for you that thing as a recommended build. Like for example, let's see, the Balam right here. The Balam is going to be right here, also the Balam is going to be right here, and the Balan is going to be right here as well, and the Balan is going to be right here as well. And I like to think about this thing like a medium-sized thing that I was telling you about. It's not going to be that heavy, it's not going to have that much armor, but it's also not going to be that slow, and it's a build that you can purchase all of those parts, and if you purchase all of those parts together, then you know that they are going to synergize and they are going to work well together. On the other hand, if we have, for example, right here, these legs that seem to be light-weighted, this is the logo that you should be looking for if you're going to look for the arms. I have already purchased these things, and there you go. You have them right here, and they seem very similar. If you pair them up together, you will see that they have a very specific design, and this is the way, like I said, of the game building this armor core for you without having to think that much on mixing and matching. You can by all means mix and match to min and max all of the rest of the things that you are going to have for your armor core, but this is going to be a lightweighted armor core. It's not going to be as defensive as a tank would be, but it's going to be fast, it's going to be efficient, and it's going to be like the fast attacking thing. Once you have tackled all of that, now you want to check the weapons that you want to place on this guy, and the weapons, they are also going to be quite weighty. You do not want to be equipping like heavyweight weapons on this kind of builds. So on this case scenario, you are going to want to have, like for example, somewhat of light weaponry that is going to allow you to build the entirety of your armor core without having to worry about being overburdened. Because if we go to the parts shop and we have already equipped all of that, as you can see right here, if we want to equip something of a heavier weapon, we are going to be overburdened. And just to have in mind, like for example, this is just a bazooka. Bazookas are naturally very heavy, so they are not going to go that well with this specific armor core that we have right here. So meaning that this is just one weapon. If we want to have like double bazookas, we do need a bit of a beefier boy that is going to have a little bit more load. Once that has been said, the generators, your FCS, your boosters, they are also going to have some kind of weight, but that is not going to impact that much the armor core. You are going to be able to change them at your heart's content. And although, well, yeah, they are going to cause some shortfall on energy, so that is something that you need to have in mind. But first, you need to take care of the generators, FCS, and boosters before you actually plan on building your armor core. Now, the generators, the concessions that you are going to have to make with the generators. You have the energy capacity, you have the energy recharge, and you have the supply recovery. Those three values basically means on the energy capacity, the amount of actions that you can perform without depleting completely your energy. The energy recharge is going to be how fast is that going to recover. And then the supply recovery is going to be very similar to the recharge, but that is going to be the recovery rate that you are going to have whenever you deplete on its entirety your energy. So if you're a very aggressive player and you know that you are going to be on recovery quite a lot of times, then you might consider taking something that is going to give you a little bit more supply recovery. But just to have in mind that you are going to have to make concessions. The concessions of not being able to move that so much as you want to move. And then we have the FCS. They are going to determine what kind of weapon are you going to be using. Are you going to be using close, medium, or long range weapons? Because these are going to determine the accuracy of the firepower that you are going to have against the enemy. So if you're going to be using medium range weapons, then you might as well go for the FCS G2PO5. If you're going to be using, on the other hand, something a little bit more that's like a balance in between all of them, you might as well take the VFGN06. And finally, the booster. This determines your flight control on itself on the battlefield. The thrust is going to be how fast are you going to be able to sprint, let's say. Upward thrust, how fast are you going to be able to jump, and how fast are you going to be able to reach maximum heights. And then the QB thrust, that needs to be actually quite high. It is advisable for you to have this thing quite high, because this is going to determine the distance that you are going to travel when you dodge. Just to have in mind that that is going to be determined as well on the speed of your armor core. So if you have a slow armor core, that is not going to matter that much, and in that regards, you might as well take something like thrust or upward thrust if you're not going to be dodging that much, if you are going to be a tank. And that is everything that you need to know about building your armor core. Like I said, the game does have many tools that you can take as a basis as you play a little bit better and you start understanding the hidden stats that the game has for you. You are going to be able to min-max at your leisure and heart's content. But for general purposes, I would advise for you to use the basics of the game to start building your armor cores. Start feeling how the game, pardon the redundancy, feels. Build your armor cores with the basics and the recommended patterns and synergies that you have right now. And then once you have a little bit more established knowledge, you can change and swap the paths a little bit better. If you like the content, so like and the birds are appreciated. Now I told you today that you're a gorgeous and beautiful person. You're indeed a gorgeous and beautiful person. I will be seeing you God and gorgeous and beautiful people in the next one. Have a beautiful day. Goodbye.